what was the main cause of the fallout between Aregbesola and Oyetola?
Well, before I came to Osun in 2019, I had written a piece in 2018 after the election. And in that piece, I said clearly that Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu needs to carry out some introspection to examine the roles and activities of some members of his inner caucus. Although I didn't mention Aregbesola's name, but I was actually referring to him, that there are some members of his inner caucus who appears not to be on the same page with him. That these persons cost the party undo, and but for some last minute maneuvers, Osun would have gone the same way. So for me, he may not accept it, but I think inordinate ambition was part of what led to the fallout. My former boss, Oyetola, was just a victim. He wasn't the target.
Inordinate ambition.
Inordinate ambition.
Can you expatiate?
Fine. You know, when Aregbesola got to Osun, he was already seeing himself as the heir apparent to the political structure of Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. And if you look at some of the programs he embarked on, they look more like expansionist, strategies. He made an attempt. He said he wanted to construct a road from Oriliowu to Osun State. They started it. I'm not sure they completed it. He started the idea that he was already seeing himself as an emerging leader.
He was already a leader.
Yeah, emerging leader in the Southwest.
He was already an emerging leader.
Well, if you say so, but...
He was Tinubu's number 2, right? Is that not what they say?
That is what most people say. But he was already seeing himself as somebody who could topple, that
political dynasty.
Yeah, that political dynasty. And so, when he now became minister, that now helped the situation. As minister, he was in Abuja, hobnobbing with other characters who also do not necessarily like Tinubu.
So wait, the battle was against Tinubu.
It was against
Oyetola.
Not Oyetola. Oyetola was just a victim. He wasn't the target.
Aregbesola was targeting Tinubu.
He was targeting Tinubu, and from what is happening today, you know that it's obvious.
Did Tinubu know that he was going to be made a minister?
Tinubu knew from the information available to me. In 2018, after the fallout of the governorship election, Iyiola Omisore helped APC to win the Rerun. And before that, they had understanding, they had agreement. In the North, they don't joke with agreement. If you want to blackmail any Northerner, if you had any understanding with him, just remind him that, look, Amana, we had this understanding. So they had an agreement with Omisore that he was going to be made a minister. The number of, they agreed on some slots for commissioners and what have you. And so based on that agreement, and those who were privy to that agreement, the late Aregbesola, former Ekiti governor, Kayode Fayemi, they were all Buhari men per se. So in the course of the ministerial nominee, it was Omisore's name that was on the list. Now, but when Baba Kande and Asiwaju sought an audience with the late Buhari, that was made known to them, and Baba Kande was said to have said, no, you can't decide for us. It was at that point that Aregbesola's name came in. But Aregbesola will tell you today that it was Buhari who made him minister, and he will also tell you that Oyetola nominated Omisore and not him.
So are you making the point that Tinubu nominated Aregbesola?
Of course, he did.
As minister? As
minister, he did. Together with Baba Kande, they were privy to his nomination.
Did they tell Aregbesola this?
I'm not aware if they did or not, but with the type of relationship that existed between them, I believe they should have told him.
So if Tinubu had nominated...
Because Aregbesola was abroad when all this were happening. I think it was Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu who called him to return to Nigeria.
That means at that point, they were in good terms.
Oh, they were in good terms.
How could they have been in good terms after the struggle to win the election in 2018? You know, it was a struggle.
Yeah, it was a struggle.
And you said that election was a referendum on the performance of Aregbesola. You said it in your book.
Yes, yeah, because he was the outgoing governor and he was the one promoting the APC candidate.
Wholeheartedly?
Well, with benefit of insight, I don't think it was wholehearted.
He didn't want Oyetola to win?
I wouldn't say he didn't want him to win, but he never supported his governorship ambition. From what I gathered, and from what I saw eventually.
He had his own candidate?
He had his own candidate.
Who was his SSG?
No, not even his SSG. The SSG wanted to run.
Yes.
You know, but he told some persons that...
We're talking about Adeoti here.
Yeah, Adeoti. Now, but most the people around him knew that his preference was his friend, Iyiola, but he never made it obvious. So they were now struggling to ensure that the ticket remains in Osun West. So if that had happened, that is when we would have seen his true hand. But that never happened because I recall when he went to see Asiwaju and he was telling him, they said he was telling him that the candidate they want to promote, that is his chief of staff, Oyetola, was not popular. And I was told that Asiwaju told him that when we took you to Osun too, you were not popular. Go and sell him.
Oyetola was Asiwaju's candidate.
He was Asiwaju's candidate.
Asiwaju wanted Oyetola.
Even though my interaction with the workers after I had returned, some of them revealed to me that they also played a role in making Asiwaju to support Oyetola's candidature. According to them, they said from the way Oyetola handled the labor matter and from his calmness, they believe that only him could have been able to stabilize the state with what had happened. So they also reached out, to Asiwaju. It was Oyetola who went to inform Asiwaju that he wants to run.
So having endorsed Oyetola as his candidate, Aregbesola had no option but to accept.
He had no option, even though he didn't like it. He had no option.
The leader has said, this is the way we are going.
This is the way we are going. And once he was the candidate, he traveled the campaign and he said they must not start the campaign until he returns. If you cross-check, Oyetola never had enough time to campaign.
So at this point, the signs were emerging.
The signs were emerging.
Oyetola was studying what was going on.
Of course.
He was seeing it.
He was.
Now, the agreement with Omisore, was Aregbesola part of it?
He wasn't part of it.
Why?
Well, those who spearheaded it were not best of friends with Aregbesola. The likes of Akeredolu, the likes of Fayemi. I think the only person who perhaps relates well with Aregbesola at that point was the late Ajimobi. So those were involved in that, and that is why the Aregbesola people will tell you that Omisore was brought to spite Aregbesola. They believe very strongly that they never needed an Omisore to win that by-election. And the Oyetola group were saying, look, if the mess that was created didn't happen, there was no way they would have run to Omisore.
Which mess?
The way the campaign was managed, the way the candidature was managed. But good enough, I had predicted before the election that there will not be a clear winner at the first ballot.
Did the APC steal that election from PDP? The 2018 election?
Well,
did Adeleke not win that election?
When you use the word steal, it's strong.
Mm-hmm.
Although I do know that in a political arrangement, certain things happen that may not be too apparent to us. But the truth is that if they run if the statement that happened had not happened, that led to Rerun, there was no way APC would have won that election.
You know, that Rerun was like a military affair.
Well, the Electoral Act is very clear. When the number of votes that were cancelled are more than the margin of win, you can't declare a winner. And that was the provision of the Electoral Act that INEC used to declare the election inconclusive.
You know, many would say that Rerun was state managed by the federal government with intense military power, so it was hijacked and given to Oyetola.
Well, I wouldn't say so, but even the PDP people reach out to Omisore. It's just that because Omisore felt betrayed by the current governor, he refused to give the current governor the support. Don't forget that Omisore was the one who handed the senatorial ticket to the current governor in 2017 when APC denied him of the platform to run. And I understood from the information available to me, part of the understanding was that the governor would not run for governorship in 2018, having been given the senatorial ticket, because at the time he got the senatorial ticket, there was crisis in PDP, there was Alimodu Sheriff's faction, there was Makarifi's faction. Now, the faction that was recognized by the court at the time was the faction Omisore belonged to. But because of that understanding, he rallied the political actors in PDP in the state behind the incumbent governor, and that was how the man was able to defeat Aregbesola's candidate, even while Aregbesola was still the governor. And for me, I believe very strongly that was the beginning of the decline of APC fortune in Osun State. But they want to blame it on Oyetola. Aregbesola was governor when they lost that senatorial by-election. Apart from that senatorial by-election, they also lost two other by-elections.
How powerful was Aregbesola in that Tinubu's team?
It was very powerful. Yeah, it was very powerful because I know that at some point, even as governor of Osun, there were certain positions that if you want to get it, you must come to Osun from Lagos. He was effectively in charge of some local governments, especially Alimosho, and you cannot decide who gets what from that enclave without his stamping.
I hear that he was Tinubu's core man.
He was, and that is why most people believe very strongly that there were some mysterious, happenings that may have led to whatever that transpired. But like our elders in Yoruba land will say, that they ask you to do bad to someone is because you had it in mind to carry out that act. Otherwise, even if they advise you to do something that is not good, if you don't have it in mind, you shouldn't have carried it out. You
know, many have said Tinubu is this political strategist that thinks ahead of others. Was he beginning to see that, okay, Aregbesola was getting very powerful, and he had his own ambition as president, only one captain in this ship. He needed to cut the feathers, the wings of Aregbesola by throwing up a challenger in Osun to tame him. And that challenger is Oyetola.
Well, it was not as what you threw up Oyetola per se. Because
are they not related?
They are related, no doubt about that. But it was Oyetola who went to inform Asiwaju of his intention to run. And he asked him, have you discussed with your boss? He said, not yet. And I think it was from there he came to discuss with the boss. But by that time, some persons were already rearing their heads as possible aspirants, But
Oyetola has always been there.
Yeah,
Tinubu has always planted him there. Is that not true?
I wouldn't say he planted him there. If anything, we should even commend Tinubu for allowing Oyetola to serve as chief of staff. Because don't forget, from the information I got, not even from Oyetola, not from anybody in Tinubu's camp, from some of the northerners who are close to us, who are my friends, when they mooted the idea Oyetola never wanted to come in as chief of staff. In fact, he was lobbying for one of his king's men to be appointed as SSG. And he had even spoken to some elders to help him talk to Asiwaju with regards to that. Only for Asiwaju to say that it's you that we want to use. And he said no, he wasn't going to do that. He reached out to some very close friends of Asiwaju to help him speak to Asiwaju, not to allow him go to Osun. One of them accepted and was kicking against it, but suddenly that one too changed his mind and said, look, you have to go. And what I later learned was that they knew the nature of Aregbesola and they needed somebody to help stabilize him. And with benefit of insight, if Oyetola had not served as Aregbesola's chief of staff, only God knows what would have happened.
So from day one, Tinubu was the one pressing the buttons.
Yeah, it's the leader of the team.
He presses the button very well.
He's the captain of the team.
Oyetola, you have to go.
Yeah.
And he obeyed. Oyetola, you have to run. And he obeyed. Aregbesola, you need to back Oyetola. Aregbe obeyed. Now, Oyetola had become governor. Perhaps Tinubu is saying, I don't want anybody to disturb Oyetola anymore. Aregbesola must move to Abuja. That Oyetola will have the space to operate. What do you think?
I don't think so, because when the crisis was brewing and they had the meeting, part of the resolution at the meeting was held between Baba Bisi Akande, Oyetola, and Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. And part of the resolutions from the meeting was that Oyetola should be allowed to face the governors, while Baba Akande, Aregbesola, and Oyetola would take care of the politics. And at that meeting too, it was agreed that Oyetola was going to go for a second term. Aregbesola was the one who took the minutes of that meeting. But he never abided by any of those resolutions.
You're talking about the 2020 meeting.
Yes, the 2020 meeting that was held in Ila.
Let's read from your book. On page 148, Ismail Omipidan writes, you need to see how elated I was 3 months later when I got intelligence that the meeting involving the duo and Tinubu would happen in December 2020. Tinubu was not president then.
He wasn't.
The meeting was to happen at the residence of Chief Akande. And on December 3rd, 2020, the meeting indeed held. At the meeting, from what I later gathered, the two gladiators agreed to work together on the basis that my principal, Oyetola, be allowed to run his show without interference. Was Aregbesola interfering?
He was interfering in a way, because before they formed the cabinet, in fact, part of the crisis APC had, for me, I put it at a doorstep of Aregbesola, because he promised people positions without carrying the man who has the mandate along.
Is it about mandate or about the caucus? Since he was number 2 in the caucus, you being governor does not matter. If you can take orders from Tinubu, you should take some orders from him too.
Well, Oyetola never took orders from Tinubu.
You know, it's about the court here.
Yeah.
The Tinubu court.
But he never took orders from Tinubu.
The rules of the court is different from the rules.
From what I was told, himself and Oyetola agreed that they would do 60-40. That is, 40 those who served in the Aregbesola's cabinet and 60 new entrants. And if you look at Oyetola's cabinet, we had several people who served in Aregbesola's cabinet who formed part of Oyetola's cabinet. But what they will tell you today is that those ones were close to Oyetola. That was why he chose them. But the thing is, that was part of the agreement. Now, there were persons that Aregbesola had promised positions for, that they will hold certain positions. I was aware, for instance, from the interaction with my principal and others around him, that it was Aregbesola who chose the chief of staff for Oyetola and the SSG. Now, Oyetola had no choice with the issue of SSG, but he protested on the issue of the Chief of Staff. He told Aregbesola that, sir, you allowed me to serve as the Chief of Staff because you know me. Chief of Staff is too sensitive a position to be given to somebody I barely know. This man you are promoting, Alhaji Razak Salinshide, I barely know him. Until the day he came to introduce himself, I didn't know he went to Unilag, because Oyetola graduated from Unilag. And Aregbesola was said to have insisted that, well, if you don't appoint him as Chief of Staff, I won't be happy with you. But look at it this way. For me, I believe it was a booby trap. The SSG he nominated is from Ejigbo in Osun West, a Muslim. He nominated the Chief of Staff from Iwo, Osun West, a Muslim. And Oyetola, the governor, a Muslim. There was no way that appointment wouldn't have raised some discomfort within the polity in Osun.
At this point, you see, Tinubu appointed the Chief of Staff for Aregbesola. Aregbesola is also saying, I will appoint the Chief of Staff for Oyetola. After all, I'm the assistant godfather. Is that not logical? It's about the court.
Well, it may be logical, but I want to believe that before appointing Oyetola, he would have discussed it with Aregbesola, and they probably would have had a consensus. It's different from, I'm sure, the Tinubu that I know. If Aregbesola had raised eyebrow, he wouldn't impose Oyetola on him. And I will give you one instance. During the build-up to removing Oshimole as the national chairman of APC, they call meetings at will in Abuja. And there was one particular meeting that was called. Asiwaju reached out to my principal to say that he wanted him to be at the meeting. And my principal told him politely that he was already committed to another program in Osun, but that he would send his deputy. The only thing Asiwaju said was that I would have loved it if you attended in person. So when we got back from the office, because most times once we leave office like that, I follow him home, we do some reviews. So in the course of our review, because I was not there when they discussed it, he was the one who told me. So he brought this matter. And I told him, I said, sir, for him to have called you, and for him to have said what you said, he wanted you to be there. And look at it this way, this is about politics, this is about the party. There are certain decisions that you will take, there are certain comment positions that you will take that your deputy may not be able to take. And in my presence, he called Asiwaju back to say he was not going to attend. And that's why I said, that gladdens his heart. And after dropping the call, what my principal told me was that, you see, saying that if it were somebody else, you wouldn't have given him the opportunity to make his own decision.
That somebody else is?
I wouldn't know.
All right. Tell me more. So that was the situation.
That was the situation. So I believe very strongly, if he had resisted the way Oyetola resisted before Aregbesola, Asiwaju would not have imposed him on him.